Okay, I'm going to call to order the Sparks Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, June 7th. If we can please have roll call.
Commissioner Vanderwell,
Here.
Commissioner Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Brock,
Here.
Commissioner Fewens,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson,
Present.
Commissioner Reed. Here. Commissioner Shabazz,
Present.
Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick,
Here.
Assistant Community Services Director Armando Ornelas.
Here.
Okay, next we'll move to public comment. This is for either public comment on any action item or for general public comment, and it's limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any requests to speak?
Not at this point.
Not at this time? Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move to approval of the agenda.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to approve the agenda as read, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Next, we'll move along to approval of the minutes. Review and possible approval of the minutes for May 1st Planning Commission study session.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Carey. I'll make a motion to approve the study session minutes as submitted.
Commissioner Fewens, second.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we'll move along to review and possible approval of minutes for May 3rd Capital Improvements Advisory Committee meeting.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the CIAC minutes as submitted.
Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brock. I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we'll move along to review and possible approval of the minutes of the May 3rd Planning Commission meeting.
Madam Chair, I'll make it 3 for 3. I'll make the motion to approve the May 3rd Planning Commission meeting minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey.
Madam Chair, I second.
Okay, Commissioner Shabazz, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next, we'll move along to announcements and committee reports.
Madam Chair, Assistant Community Services Director Armando Ornelas. The announcement is that the next meeting of the Planning Commission will be on the regularly scheduled date of July 5th.
Okay. Mr. Ornelas, you want to make any other?
I have no other announcements,
Okay.
nor do I have any informational items.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Next, we'll go to public hearing items. PCN 18-0020, consideration of possible action request for voluntary annexation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Planning Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Cummins, Assistant Planner. PCN 18-0020 is a request for a voluntary annexation of a 1.9 acre parcel located at 2101 Sullivan Lane. The property is outlined in blue on the map. It's currently part of a county island, which county properties are surrounded by city properties on all sides. This annexation petition includes annexing the western portion of Sullivan Lane, just east of the parcel, a 415-foot stretch of that road. According to the Washoe County Assessor's records, there are 3 residential units and 2 detached garages on the property, all of which are serviced by city sewer. If annexed, the Washoe County zoning designation of E1 would be converted to city's SF15 single-family zoning designation. Annexation requires that the following findings be made. Finding A1 requires conformance with Nevada revised statutes. The NRS requires that cities have an annexation program in place in order for annexations to occur. The city's annexation program expired in 2015. However, NRS allows for annexations to take place with the consent of all involved property owners. The property in question is owned by one single owner. Finding A2 requires conformance with the Sparks Municipal Code's 10 sub-findings related specifically to the properties in question. Sub-finding A requires that the location of the property be contiguous to the city limits, which this one is on 3 sides. Sub-finding B requires that this be a logical extension of city limits. Sub-finding C requires we address the need for expansion and/or growth. Being that the property is already served by city services and utilities, this will open up, provide for more land for further redevelopment in the future, which the applicant is suggesting he do. Subfinding D requires that the location of existing and planned water services be in place. City, like I said, provides sewer and stormwater service. Truckee Meadows Water Authority provides water, as well as the city provides road maintenance to Sullivan, adjacent to the property. Subfinding E requires that community goals be addressed. Staff finds that this annexation would comply with goals MG6, MG7, and CF1 from the comprehensive plan, being that it's in an older part of the city within the McCarran Loop, served by city services, contiguous to the city, to the existing city limits, and a logical extension of those limits. Subfinding F requires that this be an efficient and cost-effective provision of services to the site. All the services are already provided, so we find no further cost to the city. Subfinding G requires that the applicant provide a fiscal analysis. The analysis provided by the applicant indicated that this would have essentially a positive impact on the city's general fund. Subfinding H requires that this be in compliance with the Washoe County Community Management Plan. Washoe County staff indicated to us in writing that they had no comments on the project. Subfinding I requires that an annexation not create a county island. This will in fact be reducing the size of an existing county island. And subfinding J requires that any other factors be addressed, and staff finds that there are no other factors involved in this case. Finding A3 requires conformance with the comprehensive plan. The above stated three goals we believe can be met by this project. Further, intensifying any county property that falls under the city's sphere of influence requires annexation. The applicant, as we pointed out in their fiscal impact analysis, suggests at a future time that they would want to redevelop into a commercial use, which would require a land use change and a zoning change. And so in order to do any of those things, to intensify any county parcel that falls in the sphere of influence has to be annexed. Finding A4 requires a public notice be given. 118 letters were mailed to the property owners within 750 feet of the property, and public notice was posted in the Reno Gazette Journal on May 24th. Happy to take questions.
Great, thank you. This is a public hearing. I'm opening the public hearing. Are there any requests to speak on this item? Okay, thank you. With that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion or a combination of both. Anyone? Commissioner Carey?
Question for staff, if I may.
Yes.
Jonathan, do we have any estimate as to what the fiscal impact would be if this site was developed as residential?
No, the fiscal impact analysis was specific to the applicant's intended use as a recreational vehicle storage facility.
And so, so in order to do that, they would have to do a land use change, zone change
Correct.
down the future. And if that were to go through, it would and be redeveloped as a RV facility, it would be a $15,000 positive impact.
Over a 20-year period.
But we don't know what it would be if it was single family or a resident. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, if you won't mind,
Commissioner Peterson.
Commissioner Peterson, I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of this voluntary annexation, request AX 18-002, associated with PCN 18-0020, based on the findings A1 through A4 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth by the staff report.
Second?
Okay, I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we'll move to PCN 18-0019, consideration and possible action for site 7.72 acres in Plan Unit Development Vistas. Excuse me?
I'll speak into the microphone as best I can. Chairwoman Vanderwell,
Yes.
members of the Planning Commission, Ian Crittenden, Senior Planner. This is PCN 180019. It is a request to enter into a development agreement with the City of Sparks, as well as to rezone a 7.72 acre parcel from PD to MF2 PUD. The PUD designation is not one that gets typically used throughout the city. However, it is a carryover from the rezoning process that's outlined in the handbook and exists on the western portion of this site. The site in question is this roughly triangular piece that is west of Los Altos at that roundabout with Vista Heights Drive. The site is in the Vista's Plan Development Handbook. That plan book was approved through special use permit in 1988. At that time, this area was designated in the handbook as multifamily. The applicant requested to rezone this property last year due to large amounts of public comment, as well as a motion to recommend denial from the Planning Commission. The applicant withdrew their application and pursued remedies to address the concerns that were raised at Planning Commission. Part of those remedies is they have requested to enter into a development agreement. As you may know, the state law does not allow us to condition rezoning requests. And so the original request would have allowed the maximum density for this size parcel at MF2, which would have amounted to about 108 units. That was expressed by the applicant not to be their desire, but the rezoning can't really look at that. There was no way for us to limit the number of units that would have been potentially developable. At least not at that point. And so in order to try to address that concern for that high level of density, they are proposing to enter into a development agreement that would limit the number of units to 75 units. And they did also address that they would be townhome units that would be a for sale product. And just a reminder, while the development agreement does allow us to set certain requirements or terms to the rezoning, there still is a rezoning request associated with that development agreement. This is not a development plan. So some of the concerns that have been voiced in other meetings would not normally be addressed at this level. We are still talking about a rezoning. We have talked about terms that would limit the density and so forth, but this is not a development plan. So some of those, some of that fine detail has not been addressed. Even what might be considered some larger details, but really would be addressed through additional processes the applicant would have to go through in the future if this were approved. The development process for multifamily in the Vistas is a little odd due to the nature of the handbook. The handbook indicated originally that as parcels became ready to be developed, that they would be rezoned to R115 PUD, which is an old zoning designation that's not used anymore, but amounts to or was converted to, as the zoning designations changed in the city, to SF15, which requires 15,000 square foot lots. That density is not something that's typical throughout the Vistas. But the PUD was the important piece of that at the time, and that indicated that, hey, go look at the Vistas Plan Development Handbook, and that will give you your actual development guidelines. There were no development guidelines included for the multifamily portion of development, but the handbook did indicate that when that time came, they should be rezoned to a multifamily zoning district, which would provide those development standards for the parcel. Just to go through some of the exhibits that we have here, This shows the existing zoning of the parcel at PD, which plan development just indicates to staff that you need to go look at the handbook, which is actually the zoning document for this site. The requested zoning is to MF2. Again, as we mentioned, it would have a PUD designation to indicate that they still do belong inside of the vistas. There still are requirements of the plan development handbook that would apply. This is the development plan for the vistas that was established in 1988. The site is in this lower portion here. Vista Village East was the designation given to this site. And here is that map overlaid on an aerial to kind of help illustrate that this area was the Vista Village East designation from the past. This slide helps kind of indicate that SF15 PUD zoning that exists on kind of the western portion of this site that is an oddity, as would be this parcel, and it all is a function of the way that the handbook was written. As we moved forward through the zoning process and the PD zoning designation became available, that was the designation that the rest of this was zoned to, because the SF15 PUD designation no longer made as much sense as using the PD zoning designation, which amounts to the same thing. It wouldn't work in this location as for future development, because there's no development standards for multifamily, so we have to rezone to multifamily in order to get those development standards associated with the parcel. Oh, excuse me. This is a map showing the comprehensive land use. As mentioned, the development agreement complies with the comprehensive plan in that it would require this to require that this property be developed at 10 units per acre roughly. The MF14 plan development land use allows for densities from 10 to 14 units per acre, so it's an appropriate master plan land use designation. Also, the MF2 zoning designation is also one of the listed appropriate zoning districts for the MF14 plan develop or MF14 comprehensive plan land use as laid out in the comprehensive plan. The development agreement does include a conceptual plan of how the units that they're requesting would lay out on the property, as well as a utility plan that shows how the utilities would be brought into this parcel. Just go back here to general site plan. Staff has received numerous calls and emails and letters. Those letters were either included in the staff report or have been handed out to the Planning Commission for your review. The public comment the staff has received has all been in opposition to this request. There are 3 findings associated with a zoning request or zone change request. The first is Z1, which requires that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. As mentioned earlier, the requested MF2 zoning district is an appropriate zoning district for the MF14 comprehensive plan land use. This request also helps fulfill goals H1, policy H1, and policy H2, which all relate to the availability of land for a variety of housing options in areas that can provide the necessary services. This rezoning would allow this site to provide additional housing. The location of this site in a mature plan development will have access to all the necessary services for that kind of development. Policy CF1 requires that the city services be available, will be able to be provided at acceptable levels in order to be approved. A memo from the Community Services Director is attached to the staff report, along with supporting documentations that states that the city services, sewer, stormwater, and transportation can be provided at sufficient levels for this type of and level of development. As mentioned, this has been a land use that has been anticipated since the 80s, and so all development of city infrastructure in that area was developed at a level to accommodate this level of growth and development. Finding Z2 requires that this project be consistent with the surrounding existing land uses. The site is bordered on all sides by single-family residential. Specifically, it's bordered by Los Altos on the east, and open space on the north and south, and then some single-family on the very western side. So single-family and multifamily housing can be compatible uses. Through the tentative map process, which would be required for a townhome product, this process would be able to address any additional concerns that may come up. The adjacent open space will also help to serve as a buffer between this multifamily product and the single-family to both the north and the south. The development map from the vistas shows that the adjacency was considered at the time of granting the special use permit for this planned development. And at that time, the developer and the city found that those uses adjacent to each other were compatible at that time. And many of the planned developments in Sparks have single family and multifamily adjacent to each other. For example, Pioneer Meadows, Kylie Ranch North and South, the Foothills, Miramonte, and Wingfield Springs all have multifamily directly adjacent to single-family products. And then finally, finding Z3 requires that public notice be given. All owners of property within 750 feet of this project were noticed. 269 notices were sent out, and it was also noticed in the Reno Gazette Journal, excuse me. That is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Mr. Ornelas?
If I may just add, the city did receive a request from the applicant to continue this item because we had already noticed the item and had been posted to the city's website with the agenda. The appropriate time to make that request is now on the part of the applicant. It is at the discretion of the Planning Commission as to whether or not to grant a continuance. If you were to grant a continuance, it would need to be to a date certain. So the next scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission is on July 5th. We could do it on July 19th or August 2nd, but it would have to be to a specific date. You are obligated to open the public hearing and take public comment, but then it's at your discretion.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, Commission. For the record, Angela Foos with Loomis & Associates, here today on behalf of the applicant. We are requesting a continuance, and to give you a little bit of background as to why we are requesting this at this time, it was 2 weeks ago that we held a volunteer neighborhood meeting. We reached out to the adjacent property owners. We sent out about 400 invitations and invited them to come to the meeting where they could learn about the project and we could take some comments and some questions. That was 2 weeks ago. So a week ago, we sent in a request to the city to continue this agenda item. At this point, we would like to go back and amend our development agreement to address some of those neighborhood concerns. Some of the things specifically that they talked about was density, building height, type of residential use, parking, access, traffic, grading. A lot of those things we feel we can address as part of the development agreement. Because this is a zone change, you cannot condition the zone change. But because we've added that development agreement, that gives us a mechanism to put in some bookends, as I would call it, some assurities that run with the land, not with the property owner. So again, that gives the assurance of whatever happens down the road with this property has to fall within the guidelines of that development agreement. So we've asked for that continuance to the next available meeting. It sounds like July 5th is the next available date. Between now and then, we'll be working with staff to amend that development agreement and come back to you on July 5th or whatever date is next to present the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, and I'm going to open the public hearing for requests to speak.
Madam Chair, I have a total of 126.
Okay, we're going to be, we are going to be respectful of the commission and of each other, so that everybody has a chance to speak. I ask that everyone be respectful, or we'll have to recess the meeting until we can come to an agreement.
As I was saying, I
Yes.
have 126 cards in opposition. However, only 30 of the 126 have requested to speak.
Okay,
Would you like me to read the other 96 in the record, or how would you like me to do that?
yes, if they can be read into the record, I'd appreciate it.
Joseph Massertelli, and I apologize ahead of time if I can't read your writing or can't pronounce your name.
Excuse me.
Brian and Marilyn Green, Randy and Donna Keller, Scott and Jillian Sass, Michael Kwanzaa, Charles Atwood, Charles Hurt, Sharon Flannery, Kelly Hagan, Matthew James Miller, Carla Miller, Robin Merrill, Brandon Newfer, Jack Clare, Maria and Ronald Manabut, Debbie Reef, John Ippolito, Martha Slavanik, Nancy Shirley, Mary LeMay, John LeMay, Laverne Peter, Charles Peter, Tracy N. Mario Largo, William Smith, Debbie Smith, Jonathan Crawford, Donald Gardner, Randall Richardson, James Henglis, Julia Richardson, Sharon Heck, Louisa Acates, Janet Simpkins, Karen Hoyt, Angelo Carmela, Carol Carmela, Jana Athenson, Ellen Kingsley, Doug Evans, Dave Evans, Patricia Apolito, Carol Carmela, Julie Fleck, Linda Stainer, Lydia Chandler, Barbara Crawford, Ron Lee, Julia Gibson, Terry Morgan, Mark Hevholm, Kelly Hevholm, Marvin Cochran and Leslie Cochran, Catherine Williams, Kelly Farr, Richard Farr, Kevin Volpa, Jeremy Merlino, Sarah Hook, Stephen Hook, Deanna Ronan, Richard Capurro, Colleen Williams, Kirk Woodliff, Evelyn Tift, Barry Tift, Wanda Harris, April Santana, Kathy Kindle, Carol Wise, Zoe Stevenson, Michael Sloan, Gus Prostus, Petite Prostus, Kathy Allen, Rosalie and John Wilburn, Jacqueline Miller, Carmen Milkey, Dolly Capurro, Lucille Hill, Frank Hill, Valdine Renucci, Irene Connors, Randy Connors, Scott Atchison, Terry Riddle, J.C. Brooks, Lon Hall, Julie Wardley, Alan Munson, Juan Diaz, Eric Walker, Trisha Woodliff, Terry Emley, Annette Purcelli, Anna Van Dyne, Mark Roberts, Miriam and Guadalupe Rodriguez, Andrea Wagner, Dixie Butler, and Aaron Velarde. And then, what? Did you want the, those are the 30 that wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, we are going to start with Peggy Rue. And what I would like to ask the audience is, while people are speaking or even after they speak and things, that no clapping, no talking to us or amongst yourselves, because this way so everybody can hear, we would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Peggy Rue. I live at 2722 Milonite Court in Sparks, up at the top of Belmar Drive, where it meets Earthstone. Mayor Martini, Planning Commission, and City Council meeting members. Sparks is an amazing place to raise a family, enjoy community events, be a member of an unlimited amount of civic groups, plus you have a choice of spiritual congregations to be part of. I came to this area in 1963. I have seen a lot of growth. Many of you are new to the commission or the council, but over 20 years ago, I spent many an hour in these chambers because another builder promised one thing and did another. It took the Vintage Hills Homeowners Association months to rectify the issue, which still wasn't 100%, but the commission and the council buckled to pressure just to get it done. I don't want to see that happen again. It sounds like history is repeating itself by letting builders come to town, propose one project, then after they are approved, they change the game plan. Yet the city council and the commission does nothing. You guys live here. I would hope that you would care as much about our area as we do. So when does the quality of life come into play? When does accountability come into play? How do you sleep at night knowing our infrastructure needs improvement, but yet you've just let another builder propose where congestion may become a road rage issue, just going through those traffic circles? People do not understand the etiquette. Schools become more overcrowded, and our police and fire coverage is inadequate. And I know that for a fact because when Pyramid Highway was being done, everybody came down Sparks Boulevard, and I lived in the Vineyards, and I moved last year because of the traffic and because Sparks PD told me that we have not enough police to man Sparks Boulevard for the motorcycle racing. That's not acceptable to me. Just walking your dog can be a hazard. Officials may skirt these issues without consequence, but now builders contribute to election campaigns. There's something wrong with the system. Also, I have been in these chambers many times, and I was told by a recent candidate that each person that comes and speaks their piece or their complaints is contacted by the commission or the city council in regards to what we spoke about. I have never once been contacted after I leave or before I leave. So that candidate lied in public, and I'm sad about that, because if you guys really do want to know what we think, you may contact us. Now, I also am here representing Jeff Bonanno, mayoral candidate. He could not be here. He's at the farmer's market, but I did bring a letter from him, and each of you got a copy of it. So I hope that you understand that the quality of life in City of Sparks is much more important than letting another builder come to town.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Wagner.
Okay, here we go. Madam Chairperson and Commission. My name is Bill Wagner. I currently live in the Vistas. For the record, I'm here to talk about 2255S Los Altos Parkway, PNC 18-0019. After attending the meeting on 6/2 where I talked about the safety issues such as earthquakes, fire, rain, snow, what the plans you might recommend to the city of Sparks, to Sparks City Council to, let's see, excavate approximately 200 residents. I personally believe the collaboration between the two entities is a necessity. Now I have other concerns. The plan will take 2 years to complete, build, sell in stages. Who knows if it's going to take 2 years? It may take 3 or 4 years. Noise, which will affect a lot of people. Homebound, retired, unemployed, and those people who work at night and have to sleep during the day. There is also a possibility of damage to the foundations of many homes due to the excavation process. Apparently it's on solid rock and you may have to use dynamite or whatever, I don't know. Construction mishaps to the employees because of the difficult terrain they'll be working on. Pretty steep in areas, I'm sure, if you've all seen it. To all the homes whose fence lines run along this very steep hillside where it drops off. Boy, you could see somebody, move a truck, oh my, no, stop, sliding down that mountaintop. It'd be really, really scary. So thank you for your time, and I hope the commission will listen to my concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not bad.
Next, if we can have Spencer Erickson.
Thank you. Is it possible to use the camera?
It sure is.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Madam Chairman. For the record, my name is Spencer Erickson. I live at 2265 Stoneview Drive in the Vistas. I have 3 takeaways regarding this project that I would like to speak to tonight, and I'll try really hard to keep it under 3 minutes. Takeaway number 1, the proposed zoning is not consistent with the City of Sparks comprehensive plan. The designation of this lot as multifamily is an anomaly. The parcel is neither close to public transit nor located near an activity center as spelled out in the comprehensive plan language. In the Sparks comprehensive land use map, there's not a single other lot in the entire city zoned MF that is surrounded on all sides by low-density residential, as this one is. Every other MF designated parcel is true to the land use description and adjacent to commercial property, large blocks of open space, other multifamily developments, or intermediate density parcels. In addition, policy MG11 of the comprehensive plan states that new infill development is required to consider and be sensitive to the character of existing neighborhoods in regard to zoning, building mass, and structure placement, which is clearly not the case here. For all these reasons, finding Z1 cannot be made. Takeaway number 2, this development is not compatible with surrounding existing land use. Regardless of what the developer originally envisioned in the Vistas master plan in 1988, what was planned was not actually built. As is clear from the map overlays in Exhibit 15, shown here, the original developer abandoned all the other high-density features in the Vistas and instead developed it exclusively as single-family homes. The lot in question no longer has any of the surrounding elements called for in the Sparks Zoning Code Title 20 description for MF2. Even without considering the issues of overflow parking, traffic in the roundabout, pedestrian and child safety, or the impact to surrounding homeowners and schools, it is clear that a high-density use is incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood and that finding Z2 cannot be made. Number 3, if it's not obvious already, homeowners are adamantly opposed to this rezoning and development. I'd like to pose 2 quick questions to the audience. First, if with enough changes to development agreement, you can be persuaded to support townhomes, raise your hand now. Second question, if you oppose any form of townhomes on the lot, raise your hand now. Lastly, I'd like to address the request for continuance and note that it is at the discretion of the commission. I urge you to deny that continuance and vote down the application tonight instead of kicking the can down the road. We homeowners can and will continue to show up for these meetings, but how much more of the public's and the commission's time really needs to be spent on this issue. The issue of multifamily zoning should be decided now so that future efforts can be spent on plans for development that the community can actually support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ken Williams.
Hello, I'm Ken Williams. I live at 5080 Vista Heights Court with my wife, Colleen. We've lived there since '99, and I just wanted to talk to you guys for a second, say hello. And what I have to say is at the end of Vista Heights Drive is the roundabout. That is the smallest roundabout I've ever seen. I haven't seen one smaller. In fact, as you turn right onto Vista Heights, there was a retaining wall there, but it got knocked down so many times, they built a concrete wall this thick. And the thing is they're gonna have their outlet coming onto that roundabout, and that's just reckless planning. That makes no sense at all. It's too much. If you go up there, there's nothing but tire marks. It's a mess. And on certain hours, like when the kids get out of school, just go up there. You'll see what I'm talking about. This is a big issue, but it's just really collateral damage. The real issue is building those homes in the middle of single-family units. It just doesn't fit. He talked about there being townhomes in Miramonte. I haven't seen any except on the end where they probably belong, not in the middle of them. So I don't know about that. I just know that would give a black eye to this community. Their proposal is a projection, a prophecy of all these variables. I went to that meeting on the 23rd and I left there going, what the hell just happened? I was in a fog. I didn't get much of it. It was too vague and it was disturbing, if anything. I asked the developer if he thought about single-family homes, but no, it never came up. I'm thinking it's probably a money issue, and well, what else is new? These people they're reasonable. If there would have been something within reason, that we could live with, we wouldn't be here. It just wouldn't be happening. And I'm just thinking, there's all these people that are going to talk about the traffic, the property value, the impact on Bud Beasley, the quality of living. I'm not seeing a lot of empathy from the developers. I feel like this is being crammed down my throat, and it doesn't feel good. And I'm asking you not to recommend this go to the city council. And thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Next, Miranda Valette. Sorry. You can correct me when you get up here. Thank you.
Okay, this is my first time. I'm very informal.
That's quite all right.
So,
can you please state your name for the record?
Miranda Valette.
Great, thank you.
I live in the Vistas. I've lived there for 9 years. basically, I just want to share my experience with you guys that happened yesterday. So I have kids at Bud Beasley, Mendive, and Reed. I was at Bud Beasley for their field day, and it was fun, and everybody's out there, and you split the kids. Each class comes to you, and you split them in two. So you ask them, how many kids are in your class? Almost every time, it was 38, 39, 36. If we put 75 more townhomes, I mean, it's already insane, the building that's already happened. I just can't imagine cramming more. I mean, I feel bad for the teachers. I feel bad for the kids that are trying to learn. They're not getting the one-on-one that they are needing. And there's a million reasons I think why this shouldn't happen, but that's, for me as a mother, and I'm also a realtor for 15 years. Don't be mad at me, just kidding. And I still oppose this heavily. I mean, I just can't imagine the class sizes getting any bigger. They're busting at the seams there. The traffic in and out, dropping my kid off and picking her up from school it's insane. So to me, I feel like it doesn't belong. We don't have the room. And as he's talking about the roundabout, I can't imagine that happening. And I also do not let my kids even ride bikes in our neighborhood, which is sad because they should be able to do that. So as a mother, that's kind of what I'm coming here for today. So please, if you could take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mary Newhoff?
My name is Mary Newhoff. I live at 4692 Goodwin Court, and that's for the last 12 and a half years. If I had had any idea when I bought my home at the end of 2005 that there was a potential for a townhome or apartment complex to be built on the other side of the hill behind me, I would not have bought my house. I've wanted to live in what commonly in most communities is called R1 property, which is just, single-family homes. I spoke at the meeting at Beasley with a lady who lived up, I think, off of Vista Heights, who told me that when they were blasting the land where my house is now, that there were rocks flying through the air, that some hit her house, damaged her roof, that the ground was shaking. That's not exactly anything to look forward to. That land there, according to my next door neighbor, who's a PhD geologist, is 2 to 3 million year old basalt. It's pretty sturdy stuff. So it's gonna, take a lot to get through it. I'm concerned about privacy. I am concerned that regardless of what the developer may indicate they plan to put on that land, even if it were somehow agreeable, I don't think it ever could be with me, but if it were, there's nothing to keep them from changing it. There's nothing to keep them from selling the land to somebody else who do Lord knows what with it. There's no guarantee of anything. At the meetings last year, and then also at the meeting at Beasley on the 23rd of May, the 30-year-old handbook plan, whatever you want to call it, kept being brought up, like it was cast in concrete law, like a constitution. There are 5 other pieces of property, 2 that were planned for multiple family development. This lot was the 3rd. The other places were, there was going to be a community center, there was going to be a fire station, there was going to be a park. All of those places, with the exception of this one poor little lot, ended up getting developed for single-family homes. And why now, this late, when the whole area is comfortably inhabited by people in their single-family homes, does a multifamily development have to be stuck here? I just don't understand it, and I strongly oppose it, and I hope, like someone said earlier, that you will vote the zoning change down tonight and not just kick the can further down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Allen?
I respectfully withdraw my request to speak.
Okay, thank you. This looks like Santana.
Hello, my name is George Santana. I live off of Los Altos, and our house would be looking right into this place. Everybody here has already stated about the traffic and the kids, and it is getting bad. I came from California. I've been here a little bit over a year, but I've been coming here for 5 years. I know what traffic is all about, and it's starting to happen here. Now, as of recently the other week, I had to actually speak to a gentleman about his daughter doing 45 miles an hour, not even stopping at the sign. And it took almost 2 weeks for me to catch her to find out where she lived so we could rectify that situation. And you know, it's just gonna get worse. And they're building down as it is away from us, and you know the traffic's gonna get worse. I don't see how you're gonna widen the roads. The roundabouts that they talk about, now, it's not like I have a huge boat and a truck and a camper, but it is bare to try to get around there and be safe about it. Could you imagine if you had all kinds of people doing that in a roundabout that's already pretty hard to get through, whether you're going in the morning to work or after work? And being from California, some of these things as a contractor, it just kind of disgusts me to myself, and I'm sure a few people here. Like when they do the 750-foot announcement, you can say that you sent off however many letters. Not many people got the notice. I don't know if they did the top of the hill 750 feet down, only got a few houses, but it was word of mouth. And that looks like a lot more than 750 feet behind me. And that wasn't bad. Then they tried to schedule a meeting where most of us are gonna be at work. So if that wasn't bad, the next meeting they did, they gave us a little letter that you would just like kind of throw away because you're used to just junk mail. You know, it didn't say you won the lottery, it's just a little Luma something. Okay, yeah, it's junk mail. If I didn't have some dealings with what I do for a living, that was just interested because of the name. I would have never opened it and read it, that it was actually a meeting at Beasley School. So by word of mouth, that got around. And there would have been a lot more people if it was plainly, why can't they just say, okay, this is the contract, this is what we plan to do. So it was kind of nice that we actually got a actual real one this time where everybody knew, and you can tell that a lot of people showed up again. I don't care what they keep saying, and just like this continuance, first they started with an apartment, that didn't work, you all turned it down except for you, sir. And then they say, well, what can we do now? Let's see, we'll disguise it, and we'll say, oh, we'll do townhomes. Apartments, townhomes, and condos are basically the same except for a few features. Even this gentleman for the contractor, we asked him what's it gonna look like. He couldn't even tell us at the Beasley meeting. Is it gonna have a fence? Is it gonna be open? Is it gonna be a ditch? He had no clue. Then to add insult, he was asked if he lived here. And he said, oh yeah, I lived here. Within 3 seconds, we found out, no, he has a place in South Lake Tahoe. That's nowhere near here. So someone being from California and trying that around here, and everybody loves where they live. I would have took my wife to California when I retired, but no, it was peaceful and nice and clean here. Let's just keep it that way.
Thank you. Rachel Hambleton. Okay. This is the only time we're going to have the public hearing, so if you'd like to speak, you can speak now. Okay. Micah Hambleton.
Good evening. My name's Micah Hambleton. I live at 4097 Talladega Drive. This is the second home I have owned in this area. We used to live on the corner of Vista Terrace and Vista Heights. We moved there 2.5 years ago because of the amount of traffic that goes up and down those streets. I have looked at all of the statements that have been put out about this development. 75 units equals at least 150 more cars, minimum, because we do not have a public transit system that runs up and down Los Altos. It also opens up this area for Section 8. That means no cars for those people. They have to walk, they have to ride a bus, they have to ride a bike. Now we have more pedestrians in a highly trafficked area. We have children all over the place. I don't let my kid, who is very good at riding his bike, he doesn't even go near that area for his safety. I don't see this developer as being somebody who cares for what we, the residents of this area, want. It doesn't fit. This development doesn't fit at all. The apartments are down on the end of Los Altos and Vista. That's where the apartment complexes are. That's where it would be fitting for more townhomes, not up in the middle. So I know that the other guys have addressed this, other people, that we need to put a kibosh on this tonight and stop kicking the can down the road because nobody in this neighborhood is going to give up. So thank you.
Thank you. Rudy Viola.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for this meeting tonight, and I want to encourage you not to kick the can down the road too. And I would like to thank all my neighbors behind me for doing what they've done to notify other neighbors about this, because they have a lot of concerns and there are a lot of horror stories all of us can tell you, and I won't go through all the ones that I have a list for too. But I want to thank them for stepping up and letting all the other neighbors know about this. And also, I think there should be a better process, like the developer tried getting with the homeowners in the area, going over the project. But I think someone from the commission or the city council should talk to the homeowners too, even at those meetings or before, do something ahead of time so we can avoid some of this stuff at these kinds of meetings. So that way, when we get here, we know what we're going to do, what you're going to do, what they're going to do, and we know exactly what the plan is. And also, these people can probably help come up with a pretty good plan for that area. And I want you to take a good look at them because a lot of them are older. The house that they're in, they've been working on it. They played by the rules all their life. And they've been going through this for quite a few meetings now. And they don't want to do another meeting. They shouldn't have to go through this stress to come back here again. And the developer, he gets paid to do this. They don't. They got their house to deal with. They got their family. They got children. And they go to work too. And they play by the rules. And they should not have to keep showing up here to appease anybody. And the developer, he definitely does get paid to come here. So thank you, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Edward Baroza.
Hi, my name's Edward Baroza, 4684 North Cactus Hill Drive. Most of the stuff is, I've heard of, pretty much was on my list, but I did go to the meeting a few weeks ago with the developer / owner of the property, and at the meeting, he was asked, why he's picked a specific parcel of land when there's so much land in Nevada. His response was because of the maturity, the ambiance, and the pristine neighborhood of the vistas, all the things that we cherish in our neighborhood. He went on to say that he was only building 75 townhomes when he could build more per the multifamily zoning because he wanted to help preserve the integrity of the vistas. But wait a minute, this is the same developer who wanted to stick 108 apartment units in here last year. So, if he was going to do that last year, then where was his concerns for the residents in our neighborhood last year when he proposed this? When Ian Crittenden, Angela Fuss, and the developer were asked by a resident to give us one single benefit for the residents would get out of this project, there was a long, extended silence. And finally, the developer jumped up and answered the HOA would get more money. That was it. So lastly, there's nothing, they've already been touched about, there's nothing from stopping the developer once it's rezoned from changing his mind for townhomes and putting apartments in there if he wants to. Second, I heard him talking about Miramani and some of the other areas that have multifamily and single family together, which is true, but none of them came in 30 years after the homes are built and then are adding the apartments or the townhomes 30 years later. They're building them, copacetically with each other while they're building them and developing it, not coming in 30 years later. And thirdly, you already know everybody in this room is opposed to it, But I think if you asked everybody in this room if the zoning was shot down and it was kept the way it was, and the developer came in and said he would build single-family homes, there's probably not one person in this room that wouldn't raise their hand and say they would approve development of single-family homes in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Keys.
My name is Greg Keys. I reside at 211 Canyon Vista Drive, Sparks, Nevada, in the Vistas, obviously. This is regarding PCN 18-0019. Commission members, I oppose the proposed rezoning and plan to build in the location of 2255 Los Altos Parkway. When I purchased my home in 1993, pardon me, I was informed the area adjacent to my backyard was an engineered basin that would not be developed by Barker Homes or other builders. We have seen floods that have breached the existing drainage ditches and have run into my backyard over the last 20 years. Recently, the rains just a few weeks ago had them at the rim. Nothing has changed to correct or abate this issue. I have attached a history of capacity and flooding, shown 7 occurrences dating back to 1995. What will happen when a high-density development cuts into the steep hillside and takes away the natural landscape and turns it into a giant watershed? Concrete and asphalt do not absorb water. There will be flooding for certain. The visual, light, and noise impact in a natural canyon area will be tremendous and negatively affect the quality of life of all families located in the vistas. This in turn will negatively affect my property value as well as others located in the proximity of this proposed development. This is not an urban setting. People who live here do not want or need multifamily developments literally in their backyards. This development is completely contradictory to the 1988 master plan of a village feel with open spaces. We are having high-density urban blight thrown in the middle of open spaces we paid for and were guaranteed. The existing traffic on Los Altos is at capacity during morning and evening rush hours. Now it is proposed to add approximately 150 cars into the mix. It's not a sustainable idea. Those who live here are waiting 2 to 3 light cycles to reach Vista Boulevard at this point. Adding more traffic is a ridiculous concept. This project and rezoning problem is, this project and rezoning proposal is a bad idea, bad for the community, property values, and the environment. I encourage the commission to vote no on this proposed action immediately. And by the way, July 5th is a great date for the builder because a lot of people will be on holiday and we won't show up. So that's something to take into consideration and vote no now. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Williams.
Yeah, I'll start with this and then switch it out. Hi, I'm Nick Williams. I have several reasons that I think this is a particularly bad idea for the community of the Vistas. The first is essentially fit within the master plan, and I've asked to use the document camera because Mr. Erickson's done a really nice job of overlaying the original master plan with the development that's occurred. And what you can see is that Vista Village West and Vista Village South simply have not been built. They're single-family homes now. Additionally, you can see that there's a park that was supposed to be constructed, the school was supposed to be at the end, and there was supposed to be a fire station immediately across Los Altos. None of those things happened. From the original master planning document, I don't know if this works. Oh, cool. That's probably illegible, but it is in your packets as well. It says that the two projects were envisioned to be identical to that of the Vista Village West. In fact, these two projects may be developed and operated together with Vista Village West to achieve economies of scale and management, each site to include 5 to 6 acres of about 64 homes and densities of about a dozen per acre. As those two other sites have not been built, there is no sense of cohesion. And as you can see from the master plan, the envisioning was not for these apartment complexes to exit directly onto Los Altos. They were to exit interior into the neighborhood of the vistas. They were to be using Goodwin Road, they were to be using Canyon Vista, and they were to be separated from the rest of the homes in the area by a street. They weren't supposed to be bordering it immediately next door with only a little bit of common area between them. So this isn't exactly a fit for the master plan. And I think the master plan provides enough gray area that this is definitely open for interpretation, as it hasn't been followed thus far. Another thing in the master plan is it says in all instances, in all of the apartment and townhome areas, it limits to 68 homes. Again, this was also not followed. The lot size is increased, the density is not, but it's now a 7-acre lot instead of a 5 to 6 acre lot. With regard to some of the very specific project concerns, one that's a major concern to me is fire danger. The Earthstone fire and another fire just last week were caused by nothing more than target shooters. That's a small spark setting off what, in the case of the Earthstone, was 65 square miles of burn. When I look at the plan provided by Lumos, I see 75 homes with 5x5 patios with barbecues on them, throwing sparks into an open, unlandscaped common area. I'm not an attorney, but if my house burned down because of a bunch of sparks that came off of a townhome that was in a common area, in a community that had a master plan that called for a fire station across the street, I'd probably be talking to one. And of course, traffic. I'm definitely not a traffic engineer, and
You can just wrap up your thought?
my thought is that by way of comparison, the roundabout at Vista Heights is only 50 feet across. Belmar is 85 feet across, and none of those are four-way roundabouts. The next closest four-way roundabout in Sparks is on South DeAndrea, and it's 150 feet around. This is underbuilt and not able to handle the capacity. And even if it can handle the capacity of this project, you're only increasing the amount of work and the increased cost that you're going to have to spend to deal with this in the future when it is underrated.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Joseph Medulla.
Hi, Joseph Medulla, 2326 Stoneview Drive. Thanks for listening to us tonight. Not so prepared as my neighbors are, but I'm a very busy person, tired. I'm sure a lot of you are. I'm sure all my neighbors are. But I'm still here because this matters to us, and I will continue to come here as long as this is an issue. I agree with my neighbors. I think it's been stated, all the problems that we think that this would cause. The traffic, I mean, this lot is surrounded by homes. This is not something that can easily be put in there and, have an alternate exit or build another road. I mean, the ship has sailed on this a long time ago. And at the end of the day, this is purchased, zoned as it is, and we're here to rezone something. You can't go ahead and buy something and then change your mind on it and say, well, now I want it to be this. This was known ahead of time. It was known that this was going to be a problem. It was known that this was going to be a fight. And like I said, we'll continue to come here and do this. Finally, I guess I'd urge you, if you do a continuance, July 5th is a terrible idea. I'm sure a lot of people are going out of town. We'll still be here, but it's just a bad thing to do, and it's just going to make us that much more mad about what's going on here and our community. So that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Thank you. Tom Munoz, I apologize.
Yes, good evening. Yes, my name is Tom Munoz, and I live at 4688 Goodwin Court. and my neighbor Mary, who spoke earlier, we live in this cul-de-sac. There's a rock hill, and then on the other side is where this planned development is. And just quickly, some of my concerns are, it's a very quiet area there now. You put something like that into that location, it's going to create a lot of noise. I mean, it just vibrates and carries through the whole area there. Me living there in that area, I enjoy being able to go on the patio and looking out at the nice dark sky at night. I can just imagine, or hopefully not have to imagine, but the lights and the noise coming from this complex or this project there. Also, it really concerned me about this, the idea that they're going to have to dynamite this area. I think any one of you individuals, if you're in that situation, we wouldn't want to be living near a site where they're having to use explosives and shaking the whole area there. The other things are, it's just again, it's just, this site is one other person mentioned, the terrain is I don't know how they're going to dig in there to put in pavement and so forth for these home sites. As the other gentleman mentioned, the drainage issues would just be tremendous, and I think that's a huge concern. A couple of last things here is the lack of privacy. If they build it there, what's going to happen is you're going to get kids and maybe even adults trying to walk up that hill that's behind my property there and in that cul-de-sac to just get a view of the site or the area there, because it's just people are going to do that. And again, they're going to be looking down into people's backyards. I understand. I think that rock part is supposed to not to be disturbed, but using dynamite and so forth, I don't know how that's not going to be an issue. And it's just that you've got people walking up on that hill there. There's issues with the erosion and also liability if somebody falls down the rocks there. It's a pretty steep hill. So I just ask that we don't kick this down the road, that we have the courage to go ahead and vote tonight. I think you see that most people here don't want this here. It doesn't fit. And so I respectfully ask that you vote on this tonight and vote it down. Don't open the door to something that can't be closed later. And I thank you so much.
Thank you. Sherry Eager?
It's close.
Sorry.
No, it's
That's
okay.
why you get to say it
I
again,
get to
so
say
you
my
can correct me.
name. I had one of these copies put on your desks, I believe, or in your box.
And if you can say your name for the record, please.
I will. My name is Cherie Egger, and I am one of the 1,500 residents that live in the Vistas. I thank you in advance for allowing my input. I am against rezoning for the following reasons. Pedestrian and bike safety for children attending Bud Beasley Elementary School, only 2 blocks from the roundabout, and the adults who walk, run, and bike in the area of the townhomes and proposed entrance and exit roads. Gridlock at Vista Heights roundabout, including drivers already blowing through the yield signs. Traffic flow for workers and residents with the additional proposed 2 roads. The outcome of drivers driving through alternate streets to avoid the roundabout and zipping across Los Altos to get to their destination faster. For the drivers from all of the Vistas and most of Miramonte development, their only access to Los Altos is the Vista Heights roundabout. There's already too much congestion. I think you already heard that tonight. The gridlock lowers our property values, fire, and disaster evacuation. There are already going to be many more drivers on Los Altos due to the building of the 700 apartments. There are going to be children walking to Whitehead Elementary. They're going to have to cross Los Altos and Vista Boulevard to go through Para Park to get to Whitehead. As a retired elementary PE teacher, I can tell you they will be walking home after clubs and team games and playing with their friends at Para Park before their parents get home from work. I'm also concerned about the ecosystem, water, garbage, power, cell towers, sewer. The traffic congestion, more vehicles in the neighborhood, and more people mean more planning. I do have suggestions on how some of this can be alleviated. With these suggestions, I have concerns of the cost to the city of Sparks, its citizens' safety, and quality of life. For 13 years, I taught pedestrian and bicycle safety to over 7,000 children in our elementary schools in Washoe County. It was in conjunction with the Nevada Department of Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety. The children can learn safety, but they can't learn judgment and quick responses. That comes with growing up. For what I'd like to suggest also is flashing yield and flashing stop signs at each entrance to Los Altos within a quarter of a mile of the Vista Heights roundabout. Flags to wave that are stored in containers on either side of the streets, and crossing guards. Enforce laws for parking on the bike lane. Add parking for the grounds crews along Los Altos. This is my favorite. Build a road from Vista Boulevard to the area behind the proposed townhomes. It would be utilized by all homes south of Vista Heights roundabout. Unlock the fire roads during the fire season. I realize there are other tough questions of congestion and gridlock that slow our driving on Vista Boulevard near our warehouses and the diminishment of lanes on I-80 near John Esquaga's Nugget on the freeway. A wonderful job was done at the intersection of McCarran and Pyramid. I believe the city of Sparks can do this. We have such a great city with thoughtful decisions made all the time. Please keep us in mind when you're making this one. Thank you very much.
Diane Armstrong.
I'm Diane Armstrong, and I live at 1606 Springview Court, right on the corner of Canyon View and Springview Court, about a block from the Santa Barbara four-way stop. And I can tell you that the traffic, since we bought our house in 1991, we were original owners of the 5th subdivision that Barker built in there. And the traffic has gotten just out of control. People come down that hill 45 and 50 miles an hour. This is a real safety issue. I realize that maybe the PD should be looking at this a little more seriously than they do, but I just think about all of those townhomes going in with one entrance and the same egress around that roundabout. It's just incredible to me that we'd even consider something like that. I think that, you know, as citizens of the community, we need to think about our vulnerable populations, and that's our school kids, and that's our elderly. And if you look around this room, there are a lot of silver-haired people in this room. Some of us use hair color, but, you know, we're still climbing up there. And the Los Altos area, people walk up and down that area all day long, even in the heat of the day. And they have their dogs with them, or they have their grandkids with them. And I just think that we need to think about what we're going to do about the traffic congestion. I know that Ian said that there was a traffic study done. I beg to differ. I don't think it was a comprehensive study of the traffic gridlock that we experience. I don't leave my home until after 10 in the morning, and I am home by 3, because coming off of Vista onto Los Altos, I wait through 2 stoplights just to make that merge lane. And I feel sorry for the people that live out at Wingfield, because they've got one entrance into that area unless they come down Pyramid, and that's equally as bad during rush hours. So I ask you, as a planning commission, to take into consideration the vulnerable populations that we have living in that area, and not to consider any high-density building in that area. I mean, for God's sake, originally, that plot was planned for a community center. you know? And now we're talking townhomes or apartments. I don't even think this should be on the table, and I would ask you respectfully to table this permanently until, you know, maybe there's another plan that would be more advisable for that area, but certainly not townhouses. And I have to echo the concerns about blasting up there. That ground is, it's all volcanic. I mean, if you've done any hiking in this area at all, if you've gone up to Canoe Peak, it's just like Canoe Peak. I mean, it's solid rock. And those poor people, they're going to have broken windows. Those are supposed to be lifetime cement roofs on our houses. It's very expensive to have repair work done. Who's going to take on the liability? So with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Steve Armstrong, would you like to speak? Because you guys filled out the same one, so I didn't know if you were gonna.
Yeah, I live at the same home as Diane, so I'm still there. I guess I could speak kind of as a planner to the planner, because I've done a lot of planning studies myself, and I done the Truckee Meadows plan. That's the last one I did before I retired. And before that, I did Fernley and Wadsworth. But the really interesting one was out at Pyramid Lake. You know, when I did the big city thing, every acre has to be planned, every square foot. You got to put something on it. And I mean, that's what you do as a planner. But then you go out to Pyramid Lake and you're just trying to get electricity out there. So they got the lights on. There's a lot of open space, a lot of room to enjoy things. When I moved here in 1991, I'd walk up the parkway, go up to Canoe Peak. I found rock rings from the, you know, for hunting rings, hunting blinds. I extended my walks, found 100 sites out there, the petroglyphs. It's a really rich area culturally. And I just think about sometimes as a planner, what you do is you plan open space. Just leave it as it is. That's development. And I look at that little piece of land, and I look at all the sites that I've been to out here, and there's line of sight. You go line of sight from this peak to that peak, maybe 10,000 years ago, I don't know, 8,000 years ago, and that's how they communicated. And it wouldn't even be beyond my belief to believe that little spot up there was a line of sight into the valley. And I think, what a wonderful opportunity to turn that into an interpretive trail for the elementary school. Get their tribal leaders involved, put up some interpretive signs, make it something interesting. Don't sit there and just build every square foot that we have. Leave some open space. I mean, I'm not going to be here, but my kids, you know, my grandkids, they're going to be here. And I'd like to leave something legacy for them too in the future. So I didn't even use up my time. Good. I'll give it to somebody else.
Thank you. Tony Powell. Thank you. Matthew Wright. Is he still here? Oh, here he comes.
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm Matthew Wright. I live on Goodwin.
Can you please go up to the mic so everybody can hear what you say? Thank you.
Yeah, it kind of breaks up out there.
Sorry.
It's okay. I live on Goodwin Road, and I have a lot of the same concerns as these other folks. The roundabout for the exit out of that place is definitely not built to accommodate that many more vehicles. I will say that. If you come out of that upper community, there's a huge blind spot. I don't even take that roundabout. If I'm coming from the park up the hill, I actually turn and go south on a street before that so I can come out by my street, just to avoid the traffic in that thing and the lack of responsibility when people are driving in there. I really wish you'd put the fire station in that's supposed to go there before you sold the land. I don't know if you've been up that street where the roundabout is. If you go up to the roundabout by the park there and hang a right, that development, Miramonte, goes all the way back. There's so much land back there. You can't tell me you're not gonna develop that too. That really should be a fire station. I know that's kind of, you're past that, but, you know, that's what was designed to be there. The last thing that I'll say is the gal that spoke first from Loomis. If this was all okay, she'd probably have stuck around. So I want to thank all the people behind me for being here. I live in a great place. And this is a room of great people. I don't know all of them, but the ones around my house are awesome people. They treat my kids like their own, and I like that. And I don't want all this congestion to change that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Micah Wright? Yeah, I'll wait. Okay. Looks like the same writing. Mr. Wright, is Micah? Okay, thank you. Okay, Kevin Corral, and if I butchered your last name, I apologize.
Yes, my name is Kevin Crawley. I'm at 2234 Vista Terrace Lane, and thank you, Madam Chairman, for this chance to speak. Thank you to my neighbors, especially Spencer and Jody Erickson, for sending out the notifications, this 400 plus notifications that the builder said they sent out. I did not receive one, and had I not received one from the Ericksons for the meeting on the 23rd, I would have not known about it at all, and I would have thought that this had been a dead issue since I knew it had been voted down previously. Thank you also, more neighbors, for speaking so eloquently on all the conditions that will come with this. I mean, we already have, you know, grew up here. I've been here since 1969 consecutively and was here even prior to that. So many mistakes seen in the Reno and Sparks area due to this very thing, and the reason why we're here tonight. I respectfully ask the council to vote this down this evening. I oppose it, as do my neighbors. I would like to see it just left alone. For that matter, it's a hill, you know, and obviously the original developer felt that way too, or otherwise there would have been homes there 20, 30 years ago. We also have, what about, you know, I don't think we've addressed construction traffic, getting in and out just to, you know, begin any project at all would be a tremendous, you know, downfall of the community and adding more traffic, let alone when it's finished and having more residents in an area. I don't know of anybody that lives in a single family home adjacent to multifamily home that's happy about it. So I don't think that's really a good idea either. So we've got also environmental concerns, environmental impacts. We have, I don't know how many neighbors are behind me that come down the street and feed down onto Los Altos and then down onto Vista, whether you're taking one route or the other. It's just not a good idea. There's plenty of other areas, that actually in Reno and Sparks need to be redeveloped versus developed. And so I just have, you know, that's about all I can say about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Heel? I could be pronouncing the name wrong too. Last name is spelled Heil, first name Joseph. Okay. Dorothy Hurt. Okay. Norm Frank.
I thank you for this time. In '97, my wife Marnie picked out our lot and the house, and in '98 February, we took possession of it and enjoyed it ever since. Coming from the area we came from, we knew the city was going to build. They has to build. They have to keep building. We didn't expect it to be as fast as it is. But anyhow, this lot, we hopefully would stay vacant. We like to be a minor park, whatever, for people to enjoy. But the biggest problem is the traffic. You've been hearing about this time and time and time again. From Los Altos south, nothing has been done to Vista Boulevard to make the problem go away. Sparks Boulevard, it's a little bit different, a little bit better, but Pyramid Highway from McCarran south is even worse. It's the worst part of the whole city. Now, as I come down from my hill, sometimes I can see this little haze laying in the valley. If there's no wind, it's a little bit thicker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the start of smog. I used to run into LA in the 60s and 70s. At that time, if you was on the west side of LA, you couldn't see the mountains. They've cleaned it up. One of the things they cleaned up is they made the traffic flow. They put expressways, they widened the roads out. If it needed a freeway from point A to point B, it got built. We need the roads being built here. You have to widen them out. You have to make non-stop lights, big as the people are trying to get from here to USA Parkway. The freeways are jam-packed. You need to tell the government they've got to widen our freeway because a two-lane freeway just doesn't get it in our area. And we're building up too fast, too soon, so you've got to try and keep track with it. And that's the only thing we can do. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Ray English.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the commissioners for having this meeting and allowing us to speak. I've heard a lot of people and I agree with them. I've lived in this area for a year. My name is Ray English and I live at 2164 Stoneview Drive. What I'm hearing is called infrastructure, okay? Everybody's concerned about infrastructure. We're talking about what we believe the infrastructure problems are. Isn't it the responsibility of the city to plan the infrastructure and plan development according to the infrastructure? I haven't heard one mention of any studies of infrastructure that allow this development. I've built 4 houses in my life where I've gone into new developments. Those developments were coming into place before I went there. Every one of them had infrastructure in place, put there by the city, okay? I haven't heard once tonight a talk about the city's infrastructure concerns or the studies by the city of the infrastructure. Not one thing. I've heard nothing from the developer about the infrastructure. How can we decide to make an allowance for them to build these things without knowing what the infrastructure will allow? And that's the only thing I'm going to say, because I agree with everything else I've heard, but I've heard nothing from the city about infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Mestre, and I probably butchered your last name, and it's probably Danielle, isn't it? Thank you.
I'll be quick.
Oh, no worries.
I think earlier he had said that the drainage ditches and everything was.
State your name.
Oh, Danielle Mestre.
Thank you.
The man from the city of Sparks said that the drainage ditches were able to hold all of the water. That, I think he said that was fine. Sorry, I've been standing there a while. I don't know if you guys, I have pictures. We had a storm about 2 weeks ago, and it rained for like an hour, just 1 hour, right over us. We had a cloud. I have pictures of the drainage ditch that was put in, I
If
think.
you'd like to, you can put them on the.
But I'd like to give them to you guys too to see, okay? I don't know if
Sure.
that'll. I mean, I have quite a
pass them
few.
through.
But these are the drainage ditches that.
They're showing up fine.
In 2005 were redone because the mountain behind it slid into the houses that were down below. Okay? This, as you can see right now, wasn't even holding the water that was coming out of there after a year storm. I mean, after a 1 hour storm. This water was billowing up, ready to spill out over that ditch. And if you go to that ditch, it's probably about this high. And that ditch also comes right behind my house, which we call Mestre Creek, was Mestre River with rapids. And I have pictures of that also. But all of that coming from our area, right, led down to the area down below us at the store that was down. This is the area right below the shopping mall that's right there. Yeah. Okay, this was the shopping mall that was down below us. So that was as it slowed down. I also have pictures. I mean, this is the flooding. These are pictures for you to see the flooding. And the more you build on that land, the more you take away that land as a sponge to take that water, the more everybody, all the building that you're doing in Wingfield, all of this is going to be affected by what you do behind it and us. Not only on top of that, but I have pictures of the fire. I had an aerial coming in October. I took pictures of the fire that we had, that the houses that are on this one right here, if it had jumped over, that would have been it. You know, I mean, we saw Santa Rosa. I never thought that a fire could go that quickly. And if you want to put 200, however many people are going to be, if it was 100, right on the top of us, and expect all those people to be able to evacuate and evacuate down into Vista or anywhere. I don't know. I don't know. The planning of that just seems terrible. I mean, these are your pictures. This is my Mestre River. This is behind my house. Okay? This fence right here buckles down to people below me on Orenda. Okay? So that's all I have to say. Oh, here's one more.
Sure.
Okay, in 2005, I've been watching this since 2005, and it comes down from the top of the mountain. It's almost like a natural waterfall. And that is not anything put in by anybody to have that drainage come down. So this is the same mountain back here that slid in 2005, right? This is natural. This is coming out of there naturally. So my whole thing that I'm saying is the more you build back there, the concrete, all of that stuff is going to start to come down onto us. So I have more. I mean, they were out there cleaning them today because I'm sure that there were complaints about how much water was in there. But this would happen no matter if you cleaned it or not. There is so much water coming down. And if that's 1 hour storm, what if it was 2 or 3 that we were just dumped on? That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want the pictures or no?
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you. Tracy Johnston. Tracy Johnston, okay. Tim Wagner. Okay. That's it for my request to speak. If there's, oh, you have another one? Oh, here comes Mr. Wagner. Mr. Wagner?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Perfect, thank you. We have another one? Okay, perfect. Oh, same person. She just spoke.
Madam Chair, Council, thank you. My name is Tim Wagner.
I live at 4770 Vista Mountain Drive. There's nothing that I can say that can add to what has already been said. It's a wide variety of arguments against it. There's only one argument for this. It's based on an invalid document called master plan that was not followed. Therefore, we have the situation that we do now. We don't have the community center. We don't have the fire station. We don't have the other two multiple family developments in this area. That's the only leg that this project has to stand on. You've listened to the concerns and valid arguments of the citizens, the residents of that neighborhood against it, the traffic, the safety, and such. So I would say, please, vote your common sense that against this, and let's vote it now. The arguments aren't going to change in the next month. The desires of the developer are not going to change in the next month. Let's vote on it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mr. Wagner was my last speaker. Is there anybody that didn't speak that would like to come up and speak? Okay. And if you'll just state your name and your address, and then when you're done, if you'll fill out a comment card, we'd appreciate that.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Newfer. I live at 2206 Vista Terrace Lane. I purchased this property about 2 years ago, and I moved up here because I loved the community. It was a great place. Before I purchased, I'd pull up to the street, turn off my truck, roll down the windows, and listen to peace and quiet. And that's why I moved here. I work in Fallon, Nevada, so I commute about 750 miles a week. And I choose to do that because of the community. I have 2 kids in school, and the schools are overcrowded. And we all know that Nevada ranks last or nearly last in national rankings. And when that was asked at the meeting the other week, the response was, well, that's a Washoe County issue. Last I checked, we are Washoe County. I'm Washoe County, you're Washoe County, we're all Washoe County, which means it's all of our issues. And I ask that you take that into consideration when voting on this and not make it a bigger issue for us in that development. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'll please fill out a comment card. Sure. Anyone else? Okay, sir. Again, if you'll state your name and your address and.
Good afternoon or evening. My name is Tony Kelch. I live at 5300 Los Altos Parkway. I live at the apartments over at High Rock. I've been living in Canyon Vista and High Rock for probably since '04. So the biggest thing with me in our area is traffic is just terrible. The people that are coming off the hill are always doing at least 45, if not 50 miles an hour. Every day when I go out, I leave early just to go to work. And that's the only time I can get out is if I leave at 6 o'clock, I don't start it until 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And adding more townhomes up above is just it can be a nightmare for traffic. And, you know, the place is a beautiful area. I love it. I always have ever since I moved here. And I just hope you guys just do the right thing. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'll please step over and fill out a comment card for us. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Marvin Cochran, 4595 Vista Mountain Drive. I already filled out a comment card. I had chose not to speak at that time, but
Okay.
Anyway, there's one thing that, the big issue is the single entry into this development on that roundabout. And at the time of our meeting 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, they said it was a 2-year build. Well, I'm here to tell you, having watched development in this community, if they have to develop that roundabout into something that will handle the traffic, it won't handle it right now. But if they're to do that, it's a 10-year process. You've watched the roads grow in this town, and you've watched this community grow, and nothing happens fast. So I'm telling the developer, I told him at the meeting, that if you choose to do this, you're out 10 years, or better. So, whatever that does to your development, I would say it's probably gonna kibosh it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Hi.
Thanks for letting me come up and speak. Yeah, my name is Terry Riddle. I live at 5196 Canyon Run Drive. And nobody has really addressed a lot of the issues that I put up with, and that's noise. And the noise is because we're in a canyon. That canyon, when there's a motorcycle in the canyon, a car, a loud exhaust, whatever, when they come up that canyon, it echoes off both sides of that canyon. So what it means is there's over 100 people face that canyon that live on Los Altos, okay? Those people now, and have not for years, had a backyard to barbecue in, to visit with friends, family, people from church, kids, whatever. It's too noisy. I don't have a backyard anymore. I have, on the back of my house, I have 1.5 inches of sheetrock, plus insulation, and whatever else I can stack behind it to stop the noise. The noise is so bad on Los Altos Parkway that it affects everybody in the entire subdivision. When you get kids with their hot rod motorcycles, or guys that want to blow out their Harleys, or guys that want to take out the hot rod and get on it and clean them out on the weekend, uphill or downhill. It's a horsepower deal. Coming up that hill, you need horsepower to make it to the top of that hill. Horsepower makes noise. That's what happens. The steeper the hill, the more it takes to get to the top of the hill. Cars with loud exhaust are twice as loud. We don't have a concrete retaining wall anywhere up and down that Los Altos Parkway to protect us. If we had retaining or buffers like they do on Vista and every place else, it would be notable. But the thing of it is we don't. So it goes right through the wood fences and right into the back of the homes. It shakes the windows, it shakes the walls. And my quality of life, and everybody's quality of life on the parkway, which is Los Altos, up and down, has been destroyed over these years, and it's never been addressed. So the question is to the city, what are you going to do about the noise? And is it going to be addressed before you allow somebody else to build on top of the hill and take all that noise, all that horsepower, and put it on the top of the hill every day and on the way down? The other thing is there are no speed signs. The speed signs are very reasonable to get as far as costs. I believe they're about $18,000 or $19,000 each. They work very well over on Mariloma, and they slow the people down so people realize that they're going too fast. Now, coming downhill, the people are doing, they've done studies, and I don't agree with their studies because I've watched the studies out my window. When they're coming down the hill, a lot of people are doing 45 to 55 miles an hour. People going up the hill, they got to hit passing gear sometime, right? So when they hit passing gear, they love to hear that noise, and they put their foot in it farther. And what it does, it blows out the pipes. Guys love it. Ladies don't pay attention to it, but away they go, you know? And the same thing with a Harley, a motorcycle, a crotch rocket. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And if you didn't fill out a card, if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
please will for us. Thanks. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mike Quasna, 2260 Stoneview Drive. I'm not the smartest man in the room. I don't pretend to be smart. I don't pretend to know what the traffic situation is going to be, what the utility, the infrastructure. What I do know is what I observe. And what I've observed is good neighbors are looking me in the eye and saying, I need to move. This project is scaring people. Scaring people who lived across the street from me for decades. Are now packing their bags. And that to me is sad. I don't know how you feel about it. It's sad to me. It's your responsibility to build this city in a smart way that doesn't drive good people out of it. Growth is going to come. Jobs are coming. We can't stop that. But we can do it smarter. One more thing I feel worth mentioning. I just received an email from Washoe County School about an hour ago, and Bud Beasley is extending their no bus zone by a quarter mile, which means that more kids are going to be forced to walk to school, even before the project is started. So please keep that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'll please fill out a comment card for us. Okay. All right, anyone else? Hello.
My name's John LeMay at 5506 Vista Terrace Lane. My wife and I have lived in the Vistas since 91, both native Nevadans. I think one thing that has not been addressed here is back in the 80s when Bob McDonald and Tim teamed up with the Barkers, they created probably the premier subdivision in the valley. The city of Sparks has done very well in regulating and making sure that this subdivision is not developed in a way that's not consistent with what the Barkers and McDonald's laid out. And I think when you look at it, it's a true Nevada subdivision in the sense that it's bigger lots, homes that are spaced appropriately. It's not a De Loretto. It's not a California subdivision that was built where you can reach out and touch your neighbor's house on either side. I think that's the ambience that was created, and I think it would do a disservice to everybody if this was allowed to go forward. Now, I'm a contractor, and I appreciate that this land could be developed, and somebody does need to make money off of it. How that's done, I think it needs to be done in a fashion that is appropriate. And the city's done well, and we truly do. I've born and raised here, and grew up in a family where we built, and we're in the industry. And I could look around, I could look at Cullen Ranch, and that's a pretty development, but it is not as nice as the Vistas. It's we really do have the crown jewel in Washoe County. So I guess all I'd say is don't screw it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you fill out a card previously? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? So this will be the last chance. So if anybody wants to speak, you're welcome to come up and speak. Yes, sir.
I'd like to see it.
This mic over here. Oh, yes, you can move it.
Okay.
If it'll move for you.
That's all right, I'll scoot over.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Randy Connors. I'm at 2326 Abacus Court. And I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for being here tonight and also my fellow citizens because I think a good government only happens when we all get involved. I want to make a point to the commission and through you to the City Council that the notification requirements, I believe, are inadequate. And I know according to the Nevada Planning Guide of February 2017, that within Washoe County, mail notices for zoning issues like this are only required within 750 feet of the property, the subject property. But I think this is far too small of an area for an issue like this. I used some basic mapping processes to determine that approximate buffer of the property would only include about 370 of the property owners in this that would be affected by this particular zoning issue. And again, by some basic mapping work, I determined that there are about 1,000 homeowners, including me, that should have been mailed some meeting notices. And not because we're within that 750-foot buffer, because we're not, but because this issue is very important to us, because we all ingress and egress out of that through Vista Heights, or on the other side, Goodwin, through or directly into that property or directly by that property. And most of us weren't notified of this meeting. Now, I know that the city can post notices at different buildings in different locations, and I know that the city can also post notices online, and that's very good, but I really don't think that meets the needs of our citizens. In the Nevada Attorney General's Open Meeting Law Manual, Part 5.01, it states, "The right of citizens to attend open public meetings is diminished greatly if they're not provided with an opportunity to know when the meeting will take place and what the subjects will be. One of the primary objectives of the open meeting law is to allow members of the public to make their views known to the representatives on issues of general importance to the community. This type of communication would be impossible, if the public were denied the opportunity to appear at the meeting through lack of knowledge that a meeting would be held. In my opinion, the 750-foot standard for mailing notices denies us, the public, you and I, the right to attend meetings that are of great importance to our community. I encourage our Planning Commission, and through you, the City Council, to develop a better standard. Lastly, according to the Attorney General's Open Meeting Law Manual, a public body must mail a copy of the notice to any person who has requested a notice of meetings. That's NRS 241.0203C. I am formally requesting a mailed notice to any further meetings regarding this development by the Planning Commission or the City Council, and I urge my fellow citizens to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And did you previously fill out a speaking card?
did. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
perfect. Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair and members of the commission, staff, my name is Ron King for the record. My residence is at 2175 Canyon Point Court in the Vistas. And I've really held back on wanting to say something. We've had great stuff. These are great people, aren't they? They're great people, as are you. What I would like to do in the time that I have is to remind, which I haven't heard, and I know that these people know it, and I know it, because I'm one of those elderly people in the Vistas that on the advice of 3 or 4 of my physicians, I walk 4 or 5 times a week through the neighborhood. And I love to walk what that lot has not been called is actually a hill. It's a little mountain. And there's a very small flat area. And there's going to have to be a lot of excavation that's going to be happening. So I did hear about the construction. How are we going to deal with that? Can we? We can probably set some rules and say, okay, you're only going to blast with your dynamite to break up that solid rock between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. But still, that's got people down below that are going to be disturbed. My other real concern is want to give you all of you a challenge. And I'm giving this to the commissioners as a whole. If you have not walked that hill, if you have not driven that road and taken the time to walk up the top of that, Got to realize that at the west end of that proposed area is very, very steep. And as I can see from the plot plan, there's going to be retaining walls in certain portions of this area. They're going to try to battle their way through that rock. But over here on the west end, there doesn't appear to be any kind of a barrier that's going to stop people, kids, bikes, motorcycles, garbage trucks. I can imagine trying to get a fire truck in there. In our cul-de-sac, they can't get a fire truck in there. They have to back it in. And these roads are very, very narrow. But so those are some of the concerns that I have, and the things that these folks have brought up are great. And I just appreciate their input. Hope you will listen to them. Deny the rezoning so that we don't have to go any further. Deny it. Pass it on to the city council so that we can move on, we can enjoy it. Leave Mother Nature alone. Samuel Clemens wrote in a lot of his writings, he says, we never learn. We never learn. And you know about how far he goes? Virginia City and beyond that. We never learn. Let's not let this be one of those times we never learn and we look back and say, holy mackerel, why did we do this? It just doesn't fit, commissioners. It just does not fit. Please vote it down. Let him donate it. There must be a way that he can get some benefit through his taxes, through a grant, through something that he can get by just donating that as open space, and let us have that open space to enjoy so that I, as an old guy in that neighborhood, can still walk up that hill and look out myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you previously fill out a card?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir? If you want to let them know, just as soon as I'll call them, do it.
Jerry Allen, I'm at 4284 Desert Highlands Drive. I haven't heard anything mentioned from the commission about the 40 homes that there are 40 townhouses they're going to start to build next week in our area. So if you think Los Altos is bad now, next week will be the beginning of a new beginning. So I think that's enough, in my opinion. I think we should be done. I urge you to vote this down and not kick the can down the road to July 5th. We won't be in town then, we'll be on vacation, so I think that's a ploy, and I urge you to please vote this down.
Thank you. Anyone? Are there any other requests to speak? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're going to take probably about a 10-minute break, and then we will be right back. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order, please. Okay, so I have closed the public hearing and I brought it up to the commission for questions, comments. I'm open if anybody's got any questions. Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions for staff. Thank you, Ian. So I just want to make sure I understand what our options are tonight as a commission. Your recommendation in the staff report was approval. We also have the option to deny the application. But the applicant is requesting continuance. Do we have the option to table this item?
I may refer that to council that we have here, but yes, you have the option to recommend approval to city council, recommend denial to city council. You can continue the meeting to a date certain, or you can choose not to do that. Does that sound accurate?
That does sound accurate. I would add, however, that there is a provision in our code that if the planning commission does not make a recommendation to city council within a certain period of time, then not making that recommendation is deemed a recommendation of approval. So if the commission is inclined to do that, is inclined to table this item, please be cognizant of that. And that is only for the rezone. That would not be for the development agreement. It would be
Excuse me,
deemed-
sir. We don't address but I'll have her repeat herself. Thank you, but please don't.
If the commission failed to take action within a certain period of time, that would be deemed a recommendation of approval. And again, that is just a recommendation. City council can do what city council wants to do.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. So Ian, it sounded like from the testimony earlier from the applicant's representative, they're asking for continuance to work with the neighborhood to work out some additional revisions to the plan. Does staff have a recommendation that we should support that or not? Or is it completely up to us?
I'll let the community services director answer that question.
Commissioner Carey, for the record, Madam Chair, members of the commission, John Martini, your community services director. As much as I appreciate that question to staff, Commissioner Carey, that's actually in your purview. I think council laid out your options. I think staff tried to summarize them the best they could in the staff report. I would, if you are considering tabling this item, that comes with a little bit of duty for you. You have to explain why you're tabling it and what you need the applicant to do to bring it off the table. If you choose to continue it, I think it is reasonable for you to continue it. You must continue it to a date certain. And I think it's reasonable for you to contemplate how much time you want to give the developer. The July 5th date was brought up today. If you don't feel that that is enough time, you can certainly extend that down the road. As Assistant Director Ornelas reminded me in the hallway, we do pre-schedule 2 Planning Commission hearings a month. There will be, you could ask or you could direct for it to be continued to that second meeting in July. If you feel they need more time, you could continue to August, you could continue to September. Now, council is probably getting a little nervous at this point. You have to have reasons to do such a long continuance. Reasons could be you have a desire to allow the developer more time to work with the community, to work on more refinement to their design, and you feel that's an acceptable amount of time. It's really up to the pleasure of this commission, as long as you follow the rules and Councilor McCormick doesn't start saying stop, if that helps you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I
have a comment, Commissioner Reed.
Can you,
I-
here?
Yeah,
'Cause
thanks. It's
we
really
have-
hard
we
to
have-
hear in that
yeah,
back
we're
corner
having
back. Yeah.
issues. So the commissioners, I will remind you, if you can please make sure that your mic's close enough so everybody can hear in the back.
I am not in favor of a continuance. I think it would be disrespectful for the people that have come here to.
I've asked that you keep all of this to a minimum, please, and be respectful.
So I'm not in favor of that because I think it would undermine the people that have come and spoken today, and I'm in favor of doing a vote today.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, Commissioner Fewens.
Yes, Commissioner Fewens.
If I could ask Armando, please, to come up and talk. I would like some clarification, Armando, about what essentially a zoning change is versus a development agreement, because the applicant is asking for a development agreement, and what is the difference between just a typical rezoning to MF, in this case multifamily, to a development agreement? Could you just talk about the difference between the two?
So Armando Ornelas, Assistant Community Services Director, Commissioner Fewens and members of the Planning Commission. The distinction is essentially with a straight rezoning, what it would be asking for in this case is a multifamily zoning that allows a certain permitted density. There's no specific project tied to that. They could then come in with a project that would have as many as 108 units based on the zoning. Right, so in this instance, the development agreement, it doesn't replace the rezoning. It accompanies the rezoning request. And so the way that the development agreement is essentially binding, and it is a way to essentially condition and define the project at this stage when you otherwise wouldn't be able to have any definition necessarily or to attach any conditions to the approval. So, for example, in section 3, planning and development of the project, it specifies the permitted uses and density. So that's where it specifies that there's a maximum of 75 units versus the 108 that's allowed by this zoning if it was rezoned. It specifies that the permitted use types are single-family detached and attached, as well as multifamily. The reason that the multifamily zoning is needed in this instance is that in order to develop townhomes, you have to have multifamily zoning. It's not strictly considered a single-family product. Now, the development agreement does also allow single-family. So, and then it specifies a maximum density, 10 units per acre, and then it calls out that there's going to be a minimum open space reservation of 1.54 acres. In that section, I would note that it says permitted uses and density, subject to all the terms and conditions of this agreement, master developer agrees to design and construct the site and buildings in substantial conformance with the project plan attached hereto as Exhibit C, the code, the Vistas handbook, and as follows. So it's a binding agreement. If at some point in the future, and I know there was concerns about this expressed tonight, at some point in the future, if they wanted to do something other than the townhome product that's shown in Exhibit C, or something more than 75 units, this agreement would have to be amended by the Planning Commission and specifically by the City Council before that could occur. It would require a public hearing. So it's not to say that it can't ever be changed and that this binding agreement extends beyond the 15 years and can't be changed at all, but it requires that additional process, just as a rezoning would require additional process.
So it was brought up in public comment that if the current landowner would sell the property to another entity at the time, would the development agreement then continue on the deeded to the property?
Yes, this is recorded against the title of the property, and it runs with the land, not with the owner.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I follow?
Yes, Commissioner Shabazz.
Just a point of clarification for my own sake, and this is Commissioner Shabazz. My main question here, based on what you just said, is if we were as a panel to be leaning toward, not saying that we are, a continuance based upon, some of what was brought up tonight, and giving the developer a chance to meet that and change the plan. Is that something, based upon what you've just said, is that something that they can, that the developer can or should do? Or does it at this level remain pretty amorphous as far as what the plan actually is? In other words, to put a finer point on it, a mention about the a secondary egress and trying to meet that. Would that be something that at a later date they could address?
So this, Commissioner Shabazz, Armando Ornelas, Assistant Community Services Director, in terms of your question, this plan is essentially at a conceptual level, right?
Right.
The developer has not yet, incurred all of the expense to design a project for a site that they don't have a land use entitlement for. What I would imagine that the developer would take the time to do if they were granted a continuance would be to take the planning a little further, maybe do a little additional analysis in terms of slopes, in terms of the engineering for the site. And, one possibility, and this is speculation on my part, would be that, as they get into this a little further, that they realize that the actual yield for a townhouse project on a site like this that has some constraints, both because of its particular shape and because of the topography, that the yield might be actually significantly less or somewhat less than 75 units, in which case one change that might occur to the development agreement or the proposed development agreement would be that permitted 75 units would be something less, right? In terms of what you also alluded to, it may be that, that issue of ingress and egress into the site would be examined further. There would be additional discussions with city engineering staff and perhaps the fire department. And that plan would evolve, if you will, and then reflect some changes based on that additional analysis and work. So it's my understanding that is what was alluded to or what was discussed by Ms. Foss when she asked for the continuance, that they're looking at or asking for this continuance for the purpose of spending some additional time to make some more possible refinements to the plan. So again, it's speculation on my part, but those are the sorts of changes that you might see if this came back to you after a continuance.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Ian, if I can, I have a question. Realize that we talked about the fact that there was a traffic study and everything else, and several of the residents that spoke about the roundabout and the size of the roundabout, and as we keep putting more housing up there, that they're having issues getting through the roundabout. So can that be addressed as far as, is there a plan to make it larger, or? Mr. Martini?
I believe Mr. Martini
Say hey.
may have more specifics about that. What I can tell you as he approaches is that a traffic study was done to assess the amount of traffic and the impact that would have on Los Altos and whether it can continue to meet the level of service that is required. And that traffic study said, yes, it can continue to meet the level of service required with this additional housing. In fact, it was looking at the higher density that would be associated with just a straight zoning to MF2. So it was actually looking at the 108 units. So that traffic analysis was done. Speaking specifically about the roundabout, I would have to defer to the engineer.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, John Martini, your Community Services Director. I've been with the city for a while, and with my gray hair comes some memory. There are a lot of questions about that roundabout. I was here working on the Miramonte development. In fact, I was having this discussion with Mr. King, who's in the back of the room. There is some history to this roundabout. When the developer of Miramonte came in for their entitlements, that that developer was Centex Homes at the time. The residents at the time did not want a big roundabout at the Vista Heights roundabout. To put that roundabout in, it took out a lot of the beautiful landscaping that is currently there, that is maintained by the Vista's HOA. The feeling was, and their request was to put in the least obtrusive, if you would, the minimum size of a roundabout. And I would sit here and tell you today, it's a traffic circle, it's not a roundabout. So should this commission choose to forward a recommendation of this development agreement and rezoning forward for the council's consideration, and should the council then approve both requests as well, the next step after a rezone and in conformance with the development agreement would be when we start engineering. Now, Ian has spoken tonight. We have done capacity analysis. We have done extensive studying of this area. It goes all the way back to 1988 actually before 1988 when the Vistas were considered. We've studied again when Miramani was added. Los Altos Parkway is an RTC road. It's included in the RTP. I'm never popular when I say this. Los Altos is designed to accommodate up to about 14,000 trips a day. We're currently not there. The levels of service for our regional roads, Vista and Los Altos Parkway in particular, with concern to the area we're talking about tonight, if we go back into the 80s, pre-RTC, and then RTC came on in the 90s, our original levels of service were C. As a region, through our policymakers, those levels of service have been moved from C down to D. We do see a lot of congestion at Vista Boulevard during peak hour. Los Altos Parkway, I will tell you, is not necessarily the point of congestion. It's the intersection of South Los Altos Parkway and Vista. And I'll remind the Planning Commission, and Mr. Carey's probably pretty aware, the 2040 RTP includes an upgrade of Vista to 6 lanes from Prater Way to the freeway. So that multi-million-dollar project in the future will start relieving some of the congestion on Vista, which will allow our collectors, Los Altos Parkway is a great example, to start freeing more, have more free left turns for the folks who are going out in the morning. And, from my observations and from the traffic data we've seen, the PM peak isn't nearly as congested because most folks are making a free right up Los Altos Parkway, and that movement's pretty uncongested. It is the morning. I do agree with our citizens. When I went through this morning, I caught 2 cycles at 7:30 to get the left. It is existing today. This project, as envisioned, will add additional trips. They will be distributed north and south. They're just like any other. But to get back to the roundabout, there is a history there, but it will have to be restudied should this project or a project on this property that wants to utilize the roundabout as a 4th leg, we may end up with the big roundabout. It may come to that. We'll know when we have more advanced planning and in actual engineering at the site.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't know, you may want to stay there because I have another follow-up question. I have a question regarding the, I think it was and I forgot the resident's last name where she has the river in the backyard. I'm gonna have to say that is concerning for me with the runoff down the hill. And
So, if I can, Madam Chair, the Vistas was one of the first planned developments off of the valley floor. The folks that came before me approved a master drainage plan that included a lot of hillside elements and flows that are directed at homes. The techniques that you guys see in the later planned unit developments, our experience in the Vista taught us a lot of lessons as far as hillside development and what to do with drainage. So I'm not going to disagree with the woman who was here showing those pictures. We do see that in the Vistas. The city has come in and invested money. The hillside slough led to about $1 million, and I think it was actually over $1 million worth of concrete channel construction to catch that water that comes off the hillside. It brings it down that spillway and puts it into the channel on North Los Altos Parkway. The ditch that runs down South Los Altos Parkway that combines the runoff from the Vistas as well as Desert Highlands was redesigned right about when I got here in 1999, and that big rock line ditch is what came out of that. So lessons have been learned. The development was set up where a lot of that drainage off the hillside became the responsibility of the Vistas HOA. Most of the structures are not city structures. We, as a staff, over the 18 years I've been here, have tried to work with the Vistas for solutions, but ownership is theirs. The picture she showed of the water coming down the hillside, I believe she called it the waterfall. That's actually a storm drain outlet that was put out into an old canyon. We don't do that anymore. We put those in engineered structures now. There is history here. This is one of our older, it is our first plan unit development. Some lessons were learned and problems do exist.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner
I'm not sure who to direct this question to, but it's probably you, yeah. So regarding finding Z1, I'm looking at goal H1. Now, my understanding is this development is supposed to be a luxury condo development. How do we meet goal H1 if that is in fact that? If that is in fact the goal in this project.
Commissioner Shabazz, before Mr. Crittenden answers your question, I need one clarification. Where are you drawing the luxury condominium thought from?
Just from my understandings of from the study session that we went through, and just the materials that we're looking at, the 2-car garages that are supposed to be a part of the plan.
Oh, you're talking about the existing townhouse proposal?
Townhouse,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
So, I don't have a copy of goal H1 here. Can you read that for me?
It says facilitate development of housing that is available, affordable, and accessible to a diverse and growing population, including senior citizens.
So the question of affordability and availability is not one of affordable housing in terms of a percentage AMI unit. A variety of housing types tends to make your housing options more robust, and that was the intent of staff, was to imply that giving more variety of options allows for more opportunities for people to enter the housing market.
Okay, yeah, because the other thing, I was looking at the letter from Jeff Bonanno, in which he states that, he states that it's a luxury high-end apartments and townhomes that we're doing, and that he would like to see more affordable. Now, of course, I'm not saying that anything from that. I'm just trying to get to that goal and understand what the developer has in mind, because I had heard from the residents tonight that there is a fear that what will be built there will lend itself to Section 8 or something of those likes.
I'm going to direct that question to our Assistant Director with regard to housing programs in Section 8. I think there's some misunderstanding here.
Understood.
Thank you.
Armando Ornelas, Assistant Community Services Director. So, I'm not going to speak to the Section 8 possibility necessarily, other than to say that if these units, whoever owns these units can choose to accept a Section 8 voucher. Now, depending on the price for the unit, if they're renting the unit out, it may not be anywhere close to what the asking price for that unit is. So, it's a possibility. I would probably say it's not a probability. And, you know, and then, of course, that there's an assumption there that the units will in fact be rented out. I mean, these may very well be owner-occupied units, right? So, does that address your question?
It absolutely does. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? At this time, I will entertain a motion. Or
Madam
however
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Fewens.
Commissioner Fewens, heard a lot of discussion tonight, especially from the public, and I think in my opinion, one continuance is definitely with the public comment and working with the developer, I think is not out of line. So with that, I move to continue PCN 18-0019 to the July 19th Planning Commission.
Madam Chair, I second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Carey?
Appreciate the motion on the table. Couple comments for the record, if I may. And this is mostly to the applicant. I think from what, they've put in the development agreement that was proposed tonight, makes for a better project than what was proposed last August. And so I would encourage the applicant to continue to work with the neighborhood and refine the revision to make it more acceptable. I think there's a lot of issues that were brought up tonight, but I would make those comments in mind, and I'd support the continuance as well.
I'd like,
Commissioner Peterson?
I like,
Can you move your mic a little closer, please, Commissioner? Thank you.
I'd like a clarification on the date again in the motion, please.
Commissioner Fewens said date certain July 19th.
19th? Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Commissioner Reed?
Commissioner Reed, I still do not support a continuance. I feel that the applicant has had plenty of time to address the concerns of the neighborhood. I think they had time to submit the continuance request after the public meeting, and they waited a week. So I still do not support a continuance.
With that, I'm going to also echo Commissioner Reed's. I won't be supporting the continuance either. We have residents that have come out and take time out of their lives and things like that, and I think this is something that should have been continued to be handled. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Not in favor?
Nay.
No.
Nay. Okay. Motion carries that it will not be continued. What do we need to do now? No, hey, I've asked, I won't ask again. I need you guys to please stay respectful.
Madam Chair, could we have a roll call vote?
We sure can.
On that one, just for clarification.
Marilee?
Commissioner Vanderbilt?
Nay.
Commissioner Terry?
Yay.
Commissioner Brock? Nay. Commissioner Fewens?
Yay.
Commissioner Peterson?
Nay.
Commissioner Reed?
Nay.
Commissioner Shabazz?
Yay.
So it's 4, okay, 3-4.
Okay. What do we need to do next?
I believe the motion failed, so.
Yes, the motion
So
failed.
you need to then, I think, need another motion.
Motion.
Does anybody want to take a?
Yep, I'll take a stab at Commissioner Fewens here. I move to find the proposed development agreement DA 18-002 associated with PCN 18-0019 consistent with the Sparks Comprehensive Plan and forward a recommendation approval to the City Council.
Commissioner Carey?
Oh, are we calling for a second?
Yeah, I need a second.
I'll make the second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, Commissioner Fewens.
Yes.
I would like talk about a discussion. When we heard this before, it was just a zone change. And at that time, I did not find that the zone change fit in with the existing land uses just for a strictly multifamily zone change. With the development agreement, I find with a decreased amount of units that are going to be on this property, and with public comment that has said that they would be very favorable in a single-family development that could, which would be detached homes, which could also be similar with zoning that have smaller lots and different things with essentially the same amount of homes that are going to be on the parcels anyway. I find that with the development agreement that is deeded onto the property, the process is something that worked. With a townhome for sale, 2-car garages, when they're going to work with staff I think very well. With this being zoned multifamily since 1988, I personally live in the Vistas as well. To have a nice project that's going to, and I know our planning staff works very, very well with developers on building very nice projects. I find that a townhouse for sale development is going to be compatible with the existing uses. So that's why I'm in favor of the development agreement.
Commissioner Carey?
Additional comment, if I may. I agree with Commissioner Fewens. I also believe that the development agreement does provide a good level of transparency for the public. When we were here last August, we didn't have a project in mind. It was strictly a rezoning action that if it was approved at that point, it would allow for 108 units. This development agreement provides some transparency to the public on what sort of project is being proposed on the site, and it does limit the development to 75 units. I think this is a good action, and I would support the motion to recommend to our city council for approval.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
You want to do roll call, please?
Commissioner Vanderwell,
Yay.
Commissioner Perry,
Yay.
Commissioner Brock,
Yay.
Commissioner Fewens,
Yay.
Commissioner Pearson,
Nay.
Commissioner Reed,
Yay.
Commissioner Shabazz.
Yay.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, I'd like to ask that you continue to respect us. We still have business to conduct. Welcome. No. Huh? Do what? No.
We're not taking
We
public
need-
I'd like to make a
There's
request
no,
of the
I'm sorry,
commission.
there's no more public comment. We've closed the public comment.
How do I
We have
get to,
closed- we've closed the public comment,
How do I
sir.
get to talk to the city about this?
You may contact the city first thing in the morning.
Who do I talk to?
There'll be a public comment period at the end of the meeting.
Yes,
Okay,
there's.
I'll be seeing you in the morning. You won't see me in the morning, you can call me on Monday.
All right. With that, let's move along. Let's move. Okay. With that, I need a motion for the zoning. Commissioner Carey?
Madam Chair, I'll give this a shot. I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for the rezoning request RZ 18-003 associated with PCN 18-0019 based on findings Z1 through Z3 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Commissioner Fuin, second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Are there any comments? With that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, with that, motion carries. Next, we'll move along to general business, CA 1-18, consideration of possible action in accordance amending Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code.
Greetings. I don't think I have many public comment here today. Jim Rundle, Planning Manager, here to present an item on a code amendment. There's currently an interest in locating a winery that would use fruit produced off-site in the Victorian Square area. However, a winery is not a permitted use in downtown Victorian Square, the mixed-use district at the downtown Victorian Square. This zoning code amendment was initiated by the City Council's vote on May 14th to direct staff to move forward with an analysis of a zoning code amendment. The Planning Commission in this case is a recommending body to the City Council. During the 2015 legislative session, Assembly Bill Number 4 was passed granting Washoe and Clark counties the ability to allow commercial wineries and tasting rooms. Subsequently, in the 2015 zoning code update, the City Council approved winery as a permitted use in the City of Sparks and the agricultural zoning districts. The current request, while not permitted in Victorian Square, is also not along the lines of what was originally requested with wineries, as the original request was to produce the fruit on site and produce the wine on site. The proposal that is in front of you, staff believes, is functionally similar in terms of characteristics to a craft distillery or a brewery, both of which are currently permitted in Victorian Square. Staff is proposing that this use is appropriate in the downtown Victorian Square, the mixed-use commercial, and the mixed residential subdistricts of the mixed-use district. Staff is also proposing that it be considered for the C1, the C2, and the tourist commercial district. In the noticing or the agenda item, it did not identify staff is proposing to permit it in the industrial zoning district as well in the area that is locationally restricted. We talked about at study session from Gregg Street, McCarran, Glendale, and McCarran. Staff is proposing that definitions for both winery and urban winery as outlined on page 4 of the staff report be included as part of the motion. The functional difference being the urban winery having the fruit transported in from off-site location as opposed to an on-site winery, or just winery, excuse me. At Tuesday's study session, a question was posed by Commissioner Carey regarding bonding. Bonding is a requirement of the state statute due to the alcohol nature of the business, and Sparks would require that they are bonded when we review the business license for establishing a winery or an urban winery. With this code amendment, staff is also proposing that a parking standard be included of 1 space per 300 square feet of tasting area. In conclusion, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to amend the use table, the definitions, and a parking ordinance to permit the urban winery in certain zoning districts as identified in the use table in your staff report. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. This is it is not a public hearing, sorry, general business. Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
I have a question.
I do too.
Okay, Commissioner Peterson?
Do you not tell us that this is just the processing of the fruits?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Peterson.
This is just the processing of the fruits, isn't it? It's not growing the fruits on site or anything like that. It's just trucking them in and processing them?
Correct. The proposal here is to permit an urban winery is what we identified the term to be, and that would be where you transport in fruit from offsite and bring it to the building, let's say in Victorian Square where you would process the fruit there.
And Then I see also in this that there will be a store associated with this.
A store?
Yeah, it said for sale, location.
Yeah, the urban winery would, we anticipate would include a component where there would be a tasting room and they'd have the ability to sell the wine on site, yes.
That's what I
Yes.
thought. That's approach.
Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, mine is just curiosity. Has there been a lot of interest in doing an urban winery in downtown Sparks?
I don't know if I would say a lot of interest, but there is interest in opening an urban winery in Victorian Square.
Commissioner Shabazz?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you envision this urban winery as being a seasonal thing, or will this be all year long, considering the seasonality of fruit?
I don't know what the business model would be, but I would anticipate it would be open year-round, especially the tasting room. They would probably have wine on site that they have stored and have available for a tasting room similar to a craft distillery.
Commissioner Carey?
Jim, thanks for following up on the info about the bonding. I had a question, and I'm not sure if you know this or not. I was just kind of curious about the use of what goes on with a winery and an urban winery. And I'd imagine there would be trucks going in and out, you know, for deliveries and delivering fruit and all that. In staff's opinion, do you think that the amount of trucking and deliveries that go in and out of these types of facilities would be along the lines of like what's happens at a brewery?
Yeah, that is the analysis that we found. It is similar to a craft distillery or a brewery. And we don't anticipate that the transportation trips would generate any type of traffic issue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam
Yes.
Chairman, Commissioner Peterson, I'd like to make a motion on this if I could. I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of the code amendment associated with CA-1-18.
Commissioner Reed, second.
You have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have public comment. If anybody would like to get up and speak, you're welcome to. Okay. Go right ahead.
There'll be additional opportunity for public comment when the PCN 19 issue goes before the City Council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Will there also be additional noticing sent out to residents?
I'm going to direct that to staff for you.
I don't believe that there's an additional noticing. I think the noticing that was sent for the Planning Commission meeting basically was the required noticing. There will be more general noticing, but I would anticipate at this juncture that this will go to City Council at their first meeting in July. So I believe that would be July 9th. If for some reason we can't get the staff report together, because we'll need a report of action, there was a lot of public comment.
Sure.
And there has to be, the minutes for the meeting take the form of transcription. So they have to be prepared, and if it slips, it would go to City Council on the 23rd of July. It's two meetings, that's right, because it's the
First reading.
Well, both the development agreement and the rezoning have to be approved by ordinance, which requires a first reading, at which no action is taken, and typically there's not public comment on it. And then there's a second reading and public hearing, and that's when there'd be an opportunity for public comment.
I see. Would it be possible for the commission to recommend that one of those City Council meetings be held in the evening instead of the regular 2 p.m. in the afternoon time slot?
We will confer with the city manager and the city clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have comments from the commissioners. Commissioner Carey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to end on a positive note. I did want to invite my fellow commissioners. We'll be doing an unveiling celebration for Last Chance Joe at the Sparks Heritage Museum, Friday, June 22nd at 5:30. Wanted to take this opportunity to also thank the city staff for their support of this project over the years. It's been a 4-year restoration effort. If you've driven by Joe in front of the museum, he's looking good, and want to appreciate all the sponsors and hope to see you on the 22nd.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Any other comments? Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.